like we know, Josh Dobbs and the Tennessee running game are going to be the forefront, and definitely should be because with the success that they had last year. But they got a big hole to fill at left tackle and a wide receiver battle. So I guess we'll dive into who's that left tackle that who can protect Dobbs and let this passing game take the next step.
Dave, that's a really good, interesting question, and that's really where a lot of people are going to start first and foremost with on-the-field questions with the spring. Coming into the spring, a lot of people thought it was going to be a three-way battle between Chance Hall, a returning starter from last year, Brett Kendrick, who filled in a little bit, started a couple games last year, and highly prized redshirt freshman Drew Richmond, who Butch Jones took away from Ole Miss at the last minute in National Signing Day 2015. However, Chance Hall is out of spring practice due to injuries. There are 11 scholarship players who are sitting out spring ball this year for Tennessee due to injuries. Chance Hall is one of them. So a lot of people thought it was going to be Drew Richmond's time to shine. Mike DeBoer presented their spring session. Mike DeBoer made the statement that it's really Drew Richmond and Dontavius Blair battling for the left tackle position. Dontavius Blair is a big guy. He's a fifth-year senior. He's been a little bit of a disappointment over the last 4 years in Knoxville. So it's very surprising for Tennessee fans to hear DeBoer come out and say that it's really a battle between Dontavius Blair and Drew Richmond. Of those two, most people think that Drew Richmond is going to have the skill set to win the job, particularly as a redshirt freshman. If he's on par with Blair, he's probably going to get the nod because he's really the future. Also, people are not sure if DeBoer's saying that for the spring period, and if he's going to stick with Chance Hall at right tackle, or if Chance Hall will compete for the left tackle position when they come back in the summer camp. But right now, it looks to be most people are thinking Drew Richmond because of DeBoer's comments this past spring and what we know, what we've seen from Dontavius Blair over the past 4 years. The rest of the offensive line is looking pretty solid. Because of the injuries, they're kind of rotating people through. Tennessee really thinks we have 3 starting tackles for 2 tackle jobs and 3 starting guards for 2 guard jobs. And we're pretty set with Coleman Thomas there in the center. So it's just going to be a little bit of rotation, mixing and matching to find out what guy fits in what position. But specifically for the left tackle position, it looks like right now it might be Drew Richmond, redshirt freshman, protecting Dobbs' blind side.
Keep going, Dave. You can fire away.
All right. And now, we'll jump back to the receiver. You said, when we did our Tennessee spring preview that it would be, the vertical passing game that would need the most help from, Josh Dobbs for the Tennessee offense to take the next step. Who do we have a receiver? I know the names of Josh Smith, Josh Malone, Juwan Jennings. But, is it those guys that are going to be the catalyst of taking the next step, or is there somebody out there that we're overlooking?
Well, I think Josh Malone's going to be one of the key contributors. He's got all the talent in the world, but again, he's one of those 11 players who are missing spring practice, a little banged up, taking spring practice off. Jeff George is being looked at pretty highly. He's a JUCO transfer out of Dodge City, Kansas. Went to high school there in Leavenworth, Kansas. He's 6'6". People are excited about his height. He's displayed. He's what you would expect from a new guy in the program. He's displayed a lot of ups in the spring workouts and in the 3 practice, a couple of adjustment periods. But he has shown a couple of great plays in spring practice. And then Preston Williams, young guy from last year, had to battle back from some injuries from his high school senior year, and he had the SAT, ACT score debacle last spring. So he kind of had an off season last year. Made a few plays during the season, but a lot of people are really excited about Preston Williams and mature Jeff George. People are really excited about the run after the catch potential from those two and their potential in the red zone. I think if we can get consistency from Josh Malone and Josh Smith, that'll help. A big play potential from Jeff George and Preston Williams. And then the other thing to look for, not in the vertical passing game, but as far as matchups, is the movement of Jason Kroon from receiver to tight end. He will be a matchup nightmare. Some people are comparing him to O.J. Howard. I don't know that I would go that far, not because I don't like Jason Kroom, just because I think O.J. Howard is a really special player, underutilized there at Alabama. But that's kind of the mindset of moving Jason Kroom over to tight end. He'll be a matchup problem underneath for the linebackers and or the nickel, depending on who picks him up, depending on what formation we're in, and that will release our outside receivers to be probably one-on-one on the sides, deep down the field.
And one more thing, it just kind of popped in my head. And at the quarterback position, it's the most important one. And if, say, the worst happens and Josh Dobbs goes down, what happens to the Tennessee offense then?
Well, Quentin Dormady is the backup. Dormady is a better passer than Dobbs. Obviously, he's not as good of a runner. But I think the offense is built on that option. So I think you would see. I do not think you would see Tennessee I don't think you would see them hesitate to start throwing the ball downfield. They would not run the exact same plays, or the play calling would not be the same as Josh Dobbs. But I do not think they would hesitate to throw the ball downfield, throw it across the middle. Dormady has a very strong arm, probably a little more accurate than Josh Dobbs, particularly once you get to the second, third levels. Has a good head on his shoulder, probably not as Josh Dobbs, and he can still run. He's not going to run it as often as Joshua Dobbs, nor is he going to break as many tackles as Joshua Dobbs. But he does have the potential to run the ball to get that first down on 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4 for the option read. But I don't think you would see Tennessee to be scared, to hesitate to change their play calling philosophy and go down the field. Oftentimes, when the backup quarterback comes in, the offensive changes play calling tendencies, and he'll just use a guy who doesn't have the same skill set and the same play calling methodology. I don't think you would see that if Dormady came into the game. I think you would see Tennessee readily switch to a passing first attack.
And we've got to think that Tennessee is one of only 2 teams in the SEC that feel real comfortable with their quarterback situation coming back from 2015. Of course, Brandon Harris is back at LSU, Drew Lockey back at Mizzou, but Josh Dobbs, Chad Kelly seem to be the cream of the crop in the SEC coming into this fall. So, Mike, you took the fire from David. We'll cut you loose in trying to dissect this Gators team that, starting at quarterback, it's fairly wide open.
Yeah, Mark, I think as happy as Tennessee is with their situation quarterback, I think the first question to David from anybody who asks him about Florida spring practice is going to be who's going to be the quarterback there in Florida, and will they be able to have a more effective offensive season than Florida had last year?
What we've seen so far throughout the spring is, it's pretty much what we thought going in, and it's Luke Del Rio's job to lose. Michael Wayne did actually come out and say more than he did at any point last spring or even going into the season last year that Luke Del Rio does have a leg up on the job right now. And he did basically say it was because of, the year he sat behind him for a transfer last year. And, now he's also, we learned last week, he gained an extra year of eligibility. So does that factor in of him being able to come in and get that job as well? It helps him in the long run to know that he has another year. But, he does look to be the most comfortable quarterback. He's actually using, pump fakes and moving his shoulders and setting his feet when he throws. And he's getting the ball out, which is the most important part. When Will Grier was quarterback for Florida last year in the first 6 games, he had a propensity to get the ball out a lot faster than Treon Harris did the last half of the season, and they made the offensive line look a lot better than it probably really was. We saw the offensive line fall apart when Treon Harris was there because he wouldn't get rid of the ball. But right now what we're seeing from Luke Del Rio is he is the quarterback right now that is getting rid of the ball and to getting his checks down, and he looks more comfortable than any of the other guys, and that's to be expected. Austin Appleby is a grad transfer from Purdue, and the first couple times we saw him from the public viewing of the practice was that he was very erratic to begin with, and it was a very big surprise that Kyle Trask, the true freshman from Texas, it wasn't Felipe Franks that came in and lit the world on fire. It was actually Kyle Trask. He didn't get a lot of hype coming out of high school, but he seemed to be very on point. He was putting the ball in very catchable positions and letting the receivers go and make plays. But as it stands right now, Luke Del Rio, it's his job to lose.
Dave, not a spring practice question for you, but how short of a leash do you think McElwain's going to have? Let's say you guys lose to Tennessee and you get to game 4 or 5 in the season, and it kind of looks like last year. How short of a leash do you think he's going to have, particularly when it comes to the 2 freshmen? Do you think he really is set on redshirting 1 or 2 of those guys, or do you think he's going to make a move at quarterback during the season quickly if it's not working out?
I think one of the freshmen in Franks or Trask will definitely get redshirted. Put a year in between those guys. But I do think that's probably part of the reason he brought in grad transfer Austin Appleby. It does give them the ability to now have a quarterback that's a pro-style quarterback that can actually sit in there, and you don't have to change the offense for much like, I hate to bring it up again, but when we went from Will Greer to Treon Harris, it was 2 quarterbacks who didn't have the same skill set. But now you have these guys who come in and they're more of the same skill set. So if the worst happens and they lose to Tennessee and there's an upset, with Kentucky early in the season or something like that hasn't happened in 23 years now, something like that. So, but if that was the case and Florida does lose to a big upset in Kentucky and then Tennessee, and you getting there with 2 losses or close games and the quarterbacks are not looking that great, I do think he will give Austin Appleby a chance. I think that was the reason he brought a grad transfer in.
Hey, last question for you. Special teams was a weakness for you guys last year. Did McElwain do any recruiting specifically towards special teams players, or are they doing anything in spring practice to really work on that? What's the state of special teams in Florida? With the competitiveness of the SEC, that has a chance of being the difference in 1 or 2 games next year.
It was probably the most underrated signing Florida had of this past recruiting class was junior college kicker Eddie Pinero, redshirt sophomore now. Kicker Austin Harden, Florida announced earlier in the week that he is transferring away from the program. That lets me know Pinero has come in and pretty much solidified his role as the field goal kicker. We've seen all the trick shot videos he's put on YouTube. He's kicking 60-yarders. He's won all kind of kicking competitions that he's kicking with former NFL players and current NFL free agent kickers. And he's booming 60, 70-yarders at practice. He's doing trick shots where he lines up, in line with the side of the field goal, and he hits the upright every time he wants to. So, but he has yet to kick in a college football game. So what's going to happen when there's 90,000 people screaming and, Florida's down by 2 and he's kicking the game-winning field goal? That's going to be what happens to see where it stands with, the special teams situation at Florida, because, Mike, as you said, it was not so special last year.
I mean, it doesn't really matter. Do you guys even have a second kicker behind him?
If the Jorge Powell was the kicker who took over for Harden when Harden was struggling last year, and he got hurt versus LSU, I believe, and he tore his ACL. So if he comes back from injury, he actually showed a flash of last year. He could be pretty good, but it's all going to be the ability from him to come back from injury.
Yeah, so he's not seeing the 90,000 people or hearing from them. He's not seeing the 2 guys that run the 4.45s coming off the edge, or the line in the middle collapsing in on him. But hey, if he's really that good, maybe they give him 4 points for hitting the uprights, and he's got a completely different set of rules set up for him, and we can go that route. So it's been the Florida-Tennessee show here on SEC Breakdown. We remind you that we come your way every Wednesday night at 9 o'clock. And we post these shows right on SEC Breakdown on Twitter, so you can find us there. And please follow us on Twitter. You get insight from David Waters, Mike Loveall, Chad Niepling, who's on his sickbed right now, but still launching a website for us at the same time. So, Chad, get better very quickly, and myself, Mark Rogers. And our videos are posted at Mark Rogers TV, and also our audio podcast doing very well on Podbean and also iTunes. So again, that's SEC Breakdown. Find us at Mark Rogers TV, in particular Twitter, SEC Breakdown. We talk it up each and every day.